Yeah. Hi everyone. I think, yeah, there are so many of you here. It's exciting to meet so many new people. Um, I've been working with Elsie for the past 3 years. Is that right, Elsie?
Getting there, almost.
Mm-hmm. It has been a delight and an honor to work with her and the Edicurial Collection, which Elsie has built up steadily since then. We've worked a lot with Vertical Crypto ever since, and today we want to share with you how the Edicurial was founded, Elsie's initial ideas around the collection, and where she thinks it's going to go in the future. And I suppose we could start with that, Elsie. What encouraged you to start the Edicurial?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And as Harry explained, I'm a big fan of vertical crypto art. I have met and some amazing artists who have come through previous cohorts and found some incredible art. So I'm very excited to see what the sixth cohort puts forward during the residency. I started collecting in March of 2021, and the first time I had heard about NFTs was in relation to art. It had nothing to do with cryptocurrency at all. I really didn't know very much about cryptocurrency. And I sort of was reading about it, had heard about it through various people who work in finance. And I was really inspired by how this changed the economic model for artists. I have always been an art lover. I studied art history back in the day, and I have worked for a historical conservancy for the past almost 15 years. Which stewards a 19th century art collection. So I love it. It's a passion of mine. But when I first heard about and I've always loved digital art and video art, by the way, but once I heard about this new sort of exciting model that was making it fair for artists to be able to make a living, I was super inspired and started reading everything I could get my hands on about it. Started Googling about, at that point in time, I knew nothing, and trying to find someone who could advise me and teach me about it, and found Fanny randomly. I think it was through the MOCTA. I think she was on the MOCTA board at that time, and reached out to her, and we immediately hit it off and hired her as an advisor, and have been working with her weekly ever since, and Harry as well. So as soon as I started looking at art and was sort of introduced to this world, the scope of what artists are producing just fascinates me. And as everyone says in this world, I went down the rabbit hole and did not come out. So I am still, despite the ups and downs in the crypto world, I am holding fast and looking forward to what the future has to bring. But we're excited to share the collection with you today.
And with that in mind, I might just share my screen so that you can all get a sense of what the Edicurial Collection looks like. It's gone through a few cosmetic changes since 2021. But we have 4 galleries, of which we aim to have around 40 artworks in each one. Gallery 1 is really, I don't know if you have any comments about this gallery, Elsie.
About the first one?
Yeah, like it was kind of like your genesis in a way.
It was. So it's interesting. The 4 galleries were really limited by how many artworks could be sort of shown in each. I can't remember exactly how many, but a lot of what we're really trying to do, and Harry has really borne the brunt of this, is to document each piece almost in a way that the traditional art world does, so that people can learn about what the artist process was, who the artist was, what inspired the artist, in addition to other things like links to the Etherscan and, kind of more what I would call administrative information. So I think it takes up a lot of room. But the first gallery, it really is, Harry, still in sort of chronological order for the most part. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Which is interesting. So if you go through sort of one by one, you can see, yes, what I sort of started with and what I ended up with by the time you get to the fourth gallery. But I do think that there really is not a theme overall. I think that I have tried to acquire pieces that I thought were representative of that point in time, what was happening in the crypto art world, what was being released. I have tried to focus on women and underrepresented communities and artists from those communities as best I can. And female subject matter as well is of interest to me. But I think that it has... I have pieces from every, part of the spectrum. There's illustration, there's performance art, to animation, to stop motion, to, really, truly everything, which I am very proud of, that we've got sort of a broad spectrum to show. So I guess overall what I've tried to do over the last few years is to, I keep saying, capture this moment in time, meaning what I believe to be the emergence of crypto art as a genre, and to try and find pieces that are representative of each of these different areas. Does that explain what you were after, Harry?
And more so, yeah. Honestly, okay. When we go through Gallery 1, I don't know. It's like that in 2021, that era, March. God, it sounds like I'm talking about 10 years ago, but
it feels like 10 years ago. Yes.
There's just such an interesting blend of works here. So, you have collectible, like Elsie just said, like animation, photography. We have collectibles here, like hash masks, and some works by Hackatao, personal favorite of mine. From every kind of gallery and marketplace, this was a really exciting time for the collection. And then I suppose if we can talk a little bit, I guess we could go to Gallery 2, and I feel like this kind of evolves, like that kind of exploration. It becomes more pragmatic as we start to introduce vertical crypto artworks. Maybe you could tell us a bit about that, how you felt about collecting from the first cohort, Elsie.
Oh, hang on, Harry. I'm just noticing that you are sharing your screen.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Sorry, no, that's my bad. This is actually the first time I have been on a Discord group meeting. So, okay, here we are. Yes, so let's see. I was introduced to vertical crypto art through Fanny Lakubai and Lal Art. And I really have always been very interested in emerging artists, people who are digitally native and just starting out, but also artists who've been working in the contemporary art world and sort of crossing over into the space. I find it really fascinating what motivated them. But it looks like, and let's see, Harry, oh yes, well, I should start with the first cohort land. This piece I picked up on my own. There is something about the architecture that really spoke to me, and I think that once I found out that everyone in this cohort submitted part of this artwork and that it was all incorporated together, to me, especially now and looking at you all in the sixth cohort, it kind of was And I sort of was like, this really could be something here. And so to me, again, when I talk about capturing these moments in time, this one I'm so happy with. I'm so happy to have it as part of the collection. And, one day when people are reading about art history and vertical crypto art, I'm hoping they'll go back and take a look at this piece from the first cohort. It's so cool, and I feel like each element really sort of works with the sort of infrastructure or architecture of the backdrop, and I just think it's very special.
So what's interesting about this work is that I'd recommend for you guys to check this one out from your own browsers, and also through the Vertical Crypto Art link, is that not only is it the first experiment of a cohort combining different styles from different artists together, but it's also like I think it's a TIFF. It's a really high res PNG file. So you can get all those intricate details from each artist poured into one artwork, and we just thought that was seriously cool. And and then as we scroll through the galleries, there's more. It's just like a walking down memory lane, Elsie, like GUI books.
It is for sure.
Yeah.
Which you probably can't see it, but I have it on an infinite object just behind me. I love this one, sitting there in the background. Not sure if anyone can see it, but it's just beautiful and positive and happy, gorgeous colors, amazing patterns. I just think it's fantastic.
So yeah, it was. This work was presented, both of them, both this one and Rosalind Gann twins. They were presented at the first NFT London, which
right here. You went to see it. I remember.
Yeah. So it was just wonderful, really, to see a work that represented the community and a handful of artists experimenting with styles. I think with Linda Dunia and at the time Rose Jackson, combining their styles. It was seriously just a creative time, and the work was such high quality that it just had. I was personally very happy to see Elsie collect that one. You might have noticed as well. Whilst we will go to other works from the Vertical Crypto, Elsie has collected works from, what should I say? I want to say the old guard, but you have artists like Jake Chapman here and Damien Hirst, as well as people like Frank Stella in the collection.
Yes.
I was just wondering, Elsie, how do you feel about collecting works from, I suppose you could say, established digital artists?
So I think if they were representing an important time or an important part of the space for some reason, I am drawn to them. There have certainly been many that I have passed over, but if there's one that speaks to me in some way, I have made it a part of the collection. But I think I find myself gravitating towards people who are working within the community overall, much more so than sort of, like blue chip artists that have moved into the space. Yes, here is the Frank Stella. This is amazing. It's a sculpture, and it actually comes with the rights to print it yourself, a 3D print it, and it can be manipulated in many different ways. I think that I was inspired by this because he is an older gentleman, as you may know, and I think this was a huge leap for him to move into this space at this sort of point in his career, and I admire that so much.
Yeah, this project was particularly cool, and if I'm not mistaken, Elsie, you could also, whilst you could 3D print it, could you give it your own color palette or stylize it in your own way?
That's right. You could. So he almost, I don't want to say gave up the rights to it, but I think what Frank Stella was doing was inviting a collaboration with the collector, and that also is an amazing element to this.
Yes, such fun. Just before
absolutely.
Just before we continue, does anybody have any questions? Anything floating? If not, that is all good. If you just leave questions in the voice channel, we'll get to them ASAP. So I guess so we've gone through gallery 2. What can we discuss? So yeah, if we could talk about a handful of artworks that we've had from Vertical Crypto. Let's see. So if I can just there it is. Talking about Boya, I always struggle with this GLB file. It's there she is, upside down. I'm going to rotate you. I can't rotate you. Okay, this is a bit of a silly one. So for your forthcoming residency auction exhibition in the metaverse, Elsie has also collected works. There she is. There we go. Actually rotated the right way. Excuse me, everyone. Elsie doesn't just collect, as mentioned with Frank Stella, she doesn't just collect flat, I don't know, that's degrading, flat digital art, shall we say. She also likes collecting 3D sculptures as well. I was just wondering what you feel about collecting virtual sculptures, Elsie.
I absolutely love it. I love what they look like to begin with, even when they are flat. But then to be able to put them into certain environments in the metaverse and walk around them, feel as though you are the size of an ant looking up at this gigantic, just almost monumental piece. It's really interesting. I think that there's, again, when we talk about the collector being able to interact with pieces, also being able to change it, move it around, look at it in different environments. There's a lot of excitement to me around sculptural pieces. I absolutely love this one.
So this was, I think, for both of us, and with Boya, with it being her artwork, it was fascinating seeing the early sketches of this piece. And I'm not sure if it was it might have been in a crypto art critique where we all went inside her metaverse space, and this sculpture was massive. You could jump on it.
Enormous.
Yeah, it was really something to behold. And yeah, just a really exciting piece. So we have digital sculpture. We have a variety of styles, as we have established, and emerging and established artists. One work I'd like to highlight, it's a bit loud, but when we think of contemporary digital art, it's easy to imagine that everything is related to something contemporary, like contemporary subject matter. But there are traditional mediums and techniques being applied in this space. So, I mean, for example, we can talk about Octavio, and this is one work I think Elsie was really ahead in collecting. Octavio, I believe he was Cohort 2, might be wrong. He's such a talented craftsman when it comes to Franco-Flemish styling, artwork, and I was just wondering, Elsie, how you feel about these kind of traditional mediums in digital art.
Well, that's a wonderful question, Harry. I love it. I really love seeing kind of as I mentioned, because a lot of what I do for the Historical Conservancy, I am looking backward, and I love when I see these two worlds, sort of the historical or a style very much from history, combining with this very forward-looking digital medium, it's really incredible for me. So I really love to see when these two worlds collide and what they look like and what the sort of end product is. And this just works beautifully. There's some audio attached to this piece as well that is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So another great thing about crypto art is some of the audio you get. You get some really interesting experimentation here. All right, I will play it.
Yeah.
Slightly terrifying, but I mean, very immersive.
Yes, mine is not. It's coming in and out a bit for me, but please, if it didn't play straight through, please go onto the website and check it out because it just suits it so well.
It does. In fact, I'm just going to paste the link here.
Oh, great.
Oh, that's cool, Evelyn, that you have Linda in the exhibition in Stockholm. Congratulations.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I suppose since we've talked a tiny bit more about the variety of artworks that Elsie's collected, we could also talk a little bit about Elsie in the press. So since Elsie made her debut in 2021, she has been everywhere, or at least it feels that way. From I don't know if you remember this, Elsie, like the CADAF online exhibition.
Yes, I do.
This was an amazing exhibition during the pandemic, and during the pandemic it was so immersive. You could go within a 3D space within your browser and look at artworks and inspect them as you would in a gallery setting, and it was a really fascinating time. But there are just so many features that we have. But what I'd like to talk about with Elsie is probably from CryptoPunk to Crypto Patron. So I think this was. In fact, I'll let you talk a little more about that, Elsie. Like, if you could describe what it was about.
Sure. So this was an interview with Larry's List, who is in the traditional contemporary art world is a pretty major. I guess it's a journal, an online digital journal publication, and they will highlight collectors around the world. Is it weekly, Harry? I think it is weekly, maybe monthly.
I think so.
And I believe the collection was we were the first to be asked to talk about digital art and NFTs. And this was great because we really had a lot of space to actually explain what the heck I was doing. And I think it was also, I was able to talk a bit, again, as I had mentioned, about how I have been more involved in sort of older artworks and then jumping forward into these very forward-looking artworks. So if you look at the piece that I'm looking at on the screen in front of me, that's Sparrow Reed. And again, this is when we talk about pieces that are new and digital art. This is AI and generative, Harry, as I recall. But she was inputting 18th century portraits of female subjects, and this is what came out. And the series is gorgeous. If you haven't seen it, it's so worth looking into. But I was drawn to this, I think, because I do have an affinity for artwork from that time period. But then again, it's just mind-boggling to me that computer was involved in generating this or regenerating it from many different images that she had input. But this article, I think, explained a lot about. It's definitely worth reading if you're interested about what we're doing, and an interesting thing too is that my home is quite old. Well, it is for the U.S., not for the U.K. and other places in Europe. But my home is 1890, and it was originally a famous artist couple. This was their art studio, which is my living room. But you can see it was built in 1896. It was added onto the house, so all those giant windows are sort of east facing, and there's light coming in at all hours of the day, because when they started painting there, didn't have electricity yet. So it is really special to have these, screens around my home, and you can see actually Espen Kluge, a print of a work that I have in the back left. So I love, again, sort of this, I keep using this word juxtaposition, which I hate, by the way. It's so overused, but I can't think of a better word, where you've got this overlay of really modern, cutting edge artwork against an old facade. So to me, that's also very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It is fascinating. So because Elsie has collected, I think, over 100, this is so bad, over 100 and at least 120 NFTs. She's also made a lot of effort into presenting it in her home. So we have here like an infinite object frame. And
yes.
Yeah, Elsie, I was just wondering, do you enjoy presenting your works in infinite object frames?
I do,
in and around
I do. So this that you're looking at is John Bergerman, who is also a vertical crypto artist. I can't remember the exact cohort, but really fun, kind of, almost juvenile, but also sophisticated if you study it work. And one of my favorite things is having people come into my home who don't really know that I'm involved in digital art or crypto art, and seeing infinite objects, especially for the first time, because I have many and scattered around my home. I love that you can move them around at kind of your whim and how you're feeling. And people are saying, "What is that?" They haven't seen sort of anything like this before, and I love explaining to them. But yes, I do love living with it. Harry and Fanny and I and many other people in the community have this conversation all the time, that I do hope that the hardware sort of technology is going to improve. I think we're not 100% there yet on things that are going to be easily adopted into kind of the domestic environment. Actually, one interesting thing, we had a call with Eric Dalbin, I believe Harry is the last name, who has created a table, or several different styles of tables. He's a Parisian designer. So it is a coffee table where the surface is a screen, but you could put drinks down. And his whole concept, which I love, is that he's trying to incorporate digital art not as something just on the wall that you look at and can talk to people about. Oh, thank you, Harry. But you're sitting around it and having this very human experience around the table while you might be enjoying tea or a cocktail and maybe eating some snacks and talking about. It's a much more immersive and kind of human, I guess, approach to it. And it's very interesting when you think about this in the domestic sphere. I actually love this table, and I'm seriously considering getting one. I think it's a great way to showcase the art and to think about it in a very different way. I think this is so unique.
Yeah, well, 100%. It was really cool to see it, and also see Boya and Nicole at NFT Paris. They were presenting them there.
Yes, and you saw it in real life, Harry.
Yeah, that's right. It's a seriously cool, very shiny, immaculate looking table for NFTs. So Elsie's always on the lookout for how to present the work in a more subtle way and have it presented in your home. And I guess we could another article we discussed. So having discussed with Larry's List being a very traditional kind of institution, I suppose, online, Elsie's also spoken with other. Not to go. I hope I'm not going too far out. By the way, Elsie.
No, not at all.
So we also speak with organizations like Outland, for example, for a more discursive deep dive into the Edicurial and what it's all about. I'd say one of the
more. You have more vertical crypto art. This is Serene.
We love it. Yeah, we love it. So can you tell us what this interview was about, Elsie, with Outland?
Absolutely. So Outland is what I would call, in my opinion, a very academic study, all of these essays and interviews that Brian does. He is a professor at NYU, and I think that this is an amazing sort of approach that takes it very seriously and is presenting it in a way to the rest of the world, and even in terms of thinking about how digital art is presented to people in the traditional art world that may be more used to looking at academic writing. It's done in the way he treats digital art, I think, and the space, the people who he interviews, and in such a thoughtful way, I think is really impressive. I think this is a very, very intelligent guy who's putting a lot of effort into what he's doing. Absolutely worth reading if you're not familiar with Outland. But it's he does a really excellent deep dive. I don't know, Harry, if you agree with my assessment.
Oh, I totally do. I think that the work and the time, this was definitely your commitment, Elsie. Spent with Brian was he really wanted to understand why the Edicurial Collection was curated in the way that it was, and it actually got us thinking about why Elsie collects and curates in the way that she does. So it is quite academic, and we go through a handful of works here, like with Hackatao and Osinachi, and of course, I think Zareen might be a flagship for the Edicurial Collection at this present moment. But Elsie, I don't know how you feel about talking a little bit about the permanent collection, talking about the academic.
Yes, of course. So this is a fairly recent development for Edicurial, and I think we got to a point where we've got these 4 different galleries on the website. The reason that we created a website in the first place was I had always hoped, as a lot of my colleagues in the Conservancy and people that I know in the traditional art world, I want to be able to share the collection in a way that feels familiar to them. And a lot of the people are, let's say age 45 and older. And there's so much that is new to crypto art that for traditional art world people, I think sometimes it's the hurdle is just too high for them to get over. And then the work is so different from things that they're accustomed to and what they studied back in the day when they were in school, that I thought this was the sort of bridge that needed to be there, that something they could understand in a format that was familiar to them, where we could share about Edicurial and all of these amazing artworks. But we're now to a point where, Harry, I think we actually have closer to 170 NFTs, believe it or not. It's kind of kind of shocking. But we are going to make a very difficult effort at boiling it down to 100 pieces and establish a permanent collection. So this is going to be difficult. I love them all. I have not sold one piece of artwork since I bought it. I have never been in this to make a profit. I have been attracted and stayed in the space because I love the art. I love the movement. I love the community. And I believe that this collection overall will hopefully one day be representative of, as I said earlier, the emergence of crypto art, or rare digital art, however you prefer to call it. But I'm very excited and nervous at the same time about trying to do a really good job with this. It's going to be tough work. Harry and Fanny and I have been working at it already, but it's going to make me feel great to have that sort of done. But it's also it's tough. It really is. It's like walking a tightrope.
To elaborate on Elsie's suggestion here. So this is a work in progress. We'd love to show it to you right now, but we can't. It's really about, so I mean, with 170 like around 170 NFTs, discussing with most of the artists, like who they are, where they come from, what they do, how long they've been doing it, what the work is in question, and how Elsie feels about it. Spreading that kind of that awareness, that contextual awareness into 100 artworks and having it represent fairly across the board. It's been quite a challenge. So hopefully there are maybe like a handful of works from the vertical crypto art community that are in there. But we look forward to sharing it more with you very soon. And oh, hello.
Oh, hey.
Hi there.
Hey, y'all.
I was just wondering if anybody had any, like, a question break. If anyone has any ideas floating around at this point. Oh, super. Okay.
Hi.
Thank you for your
I'll just unmute myself.
Sure.
Sorry, yeah. I'm always so bad at these types of conversations where no one can really see each other's faces. It's always very awkward. But I have a bunch of questions. I'll just start with one and then see if there's more time later. But my first question is, I'm really interested, you're sort of talking about collecting work that captures a moment in the crypto art space. And I'm wondering what kind of discussions you have about this current moment and how that is affecting how you sort of research artists to find for this moment. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. That is a very good question. Obviously, very relevant to what you all are doing. I think that when I'm looking at pieces, and we talk about capturing a moment in time, we keep using that catchphrase. You then have to sort of boil it down to looking at the one particular piece or the one particular artist that might have caught your eye or Fanny may have introduced me to, and look at them individually as well. So right now, you asked about this actual moment in time. I think it is just still staying on top of what's being released. And I think it's like anything when you're buying, whether it's digital art or art in the traditional art world that you might hang on your wall. Does it spark some emotion in me? Does the story of the artist, what the artist has overcome for some reason, inspire me? I feel like I have to have some kind of personal connection to each piece that I collect and add to the collection. So although I'm trying to, have a broad scope and these important works along with emerging artists and people I think will be important artists in the space, each of them individually has to speak to me. I think ultimately that's the driving piece, and that's very personal. So, I mean, I can say that to you as a collector, but I think every collector will have a different type of work or subject matter or artist story speak to them. So it's kind of a tough question to answer, but it's just something for some reason clicks and resonates with me, and that ultimately is why I choose a piece.
Thank you for the question.
Yes,
that was a
great
question.
It's a great question.
So we have one. What is your approach to collecting pieces? I see a lot of great art. How do you make that decision? Okay, this is the one I need to have. I suppose that's similar, but maybe we could talk more about it.
Yeah, of course. I think it is either something for some reason stops me in my tracks because I think it's really beautiful. I buy things ultimately because I love them. As we know, all art is a speculative place to purchase things or add things to a collection. So it's got to be something that you want to look at and you want to enjoy, you want to share, and that maybe even if you think something's beautiful, if you come back to it in a couple of weeks and are looking at it again, maybe something that has such depth that you might notice something you hadn't seen before. I mean, certainly with Mr. Ritchie, another vertical crypto artist,
Yeah.
I could stare at these for days and I find something else really special and unique and humorous or cheeky or, interesting that's in there. So it really is a sort of a multitude of different things that could appeal to me. If that answers your question, it's something that for some reason I connect with. I see another.
Yeah, so Espinosa asks, in your view, can the blockchain be an art medium as well as a means for tracking provenance and transact monetarily?
I think that it can. When I think of an art medium, I guess in the traditional art world, it's sort of I guess it is. It's what materials I guess you're working in, and combined with the format. So I suppose that blockchain is an art medium, but in addition to that, it also is tracking provenance and transacting monetarily. It kind of does a lot of different things. It is really unique, obviously, that this has not existed before. I am also very interested in what blockchain will do for the traditional art world in tracking provenance. The collection we have for our conservancy, we go through great efforts trying to bring back paintings from the art colony that it existed here in Westchester County, New York, and getting things authenticated. And when I think about the implications that blockchain has for provenance in museums going forward and going backward, sort of potentially having NFTs attached or putting the information on blockchain for existing pieces is incredible. That's another thing about the space that I love the art and I believe in this space, but I also think that blockchain, it has not settled down yet. I think it will settle down, but the implications and the applications for blockchain I think are going to affect so many different things in the world. But the art world, it's got a really excellent purpose here for sure.
Thank you, Elsie. So we have another question from Emily, so this is an interesting one. I wonder what your stance is on this.
Yes, it is very tough. I think that we got to a point where we're 2.5+ years in, and really what I would call concerted effort in collecting and documenting. I think that having edging up towards 200 pieces, and by the way, I have. I fall in love with an artist. Oftentimes, I will have multiple pieces from the same artist. Part of this exercise maybe is choosing the piece that I think is most impactful, in my own opinion, by a particular artist. If I have several, that's a part of the boiling down process. And I think that it's helping to achieve part of the goal of what we're doing in sort of establishing who I think, in my own humble collector's opinion, are the most important artists or people who have been most impactful in the space, either in terms of the artwork or culturally, over the last 2.5 years. And I think that we're going to have to discuss going forward once this exercise is completed, because it's a lot of work. What that will look like over time. Yes, we have our permanent collection. Do we begin another permanent collection for the next 2.5 years, keep collecting, and then figure out who those 100 are? But I think it can almost get to a point where it's so cumbersome, it's too much to take in. I do not plan to sell the excess pieces. I can't say that I won't at some point in time. I'm not trying to create a vault like some collectors do. But I think it's a collection is a living, breathing sort of being, really, and I think that this is helping to sort of focus it a little bit more, rather than just having things sitting out there. And I think the editing process is going to help me as a collector also to sort of hone in on what I've done and what I would like to do going forward.
I'd also like to add to Elsie's point that this invention of the permanent collection takes inspiration from similar collections like the Museum of Crypto Art's permanent collection, and also to what Elsie was saying, the strong curatorial decisions that need to be made about what the collection is about. I feel like it has to be refined to a certain limit, a certain number. So yeah, just adding that in there. Sungrazers, you have 2 questions by voice.
Yes, good morning to both of you, and that's from the future here in Australia, where it's 3 o'clock in the morning. So excuse being a bit tricky. There are 2 things that fascinate me with your collection there, Elsie, which is that you have a disproportionate number of the moving image and the three-dimensional image. That's quite unusual in a collection, and both fascinate me because we come from the world of aerial filmmaking and the moving image, and we've encountered several issues there, and also we're very much into photogrammetry and creating 3-dimensional objects. On the moving side, we've found that the issue of file size is a big thing, and platforms are quite limited on the file sizes that they can take, and we're just sort of at the leading edge of that in being able to expand outwards and be creative in the moving image. And the other question relates to 3D, where of course, because it's 3-dimensional, how you present it in a fixed way is interesting. We go to a three-dimensional object and we move around with our mouse, but at some point, if you're displaying it, unless you've got it kind of turning constantly, then there's one direction you're going to see it from. And the thing that you really stimulated me on was when you said a monumental piece, because of course a GLB, you go into the metaverse and you click scale, and the thing is either tabletop or it's monumental, which is a facet of 3D art that I'd never thought of before.
Those are great questions. And, it is interesting. You are absolutely right. I do have a lot of moving image. I think I've always been drawn to moving image, even before I got into crypto art. I think that I have been drawn to it because the capability is there. That it's part of what's so different about it. But you're absolutely right in terms of being able to showcase it and how you're going to share that in your home. It really varies from piece to piece. Oh, yes. So this is a screen grab that Harry took we're at the recent show. But it's a problem. I don't think that we're quite.
Did we lose Elsie there, Harry? I've lost.
I think we might have. I thought that was me. I'll just send her a quick message. Hold on a second. Oh.
Am I back, Harry?
Yeah, you're good. We were just, momentary.
Oh, sorry. I'm not sure when I cut out. But I had moved on to your question about how to show these particular pieces that are moving or our sculpture. It's tough. I don't think we're entirely there yet. I always think about I don't know if this is culturally relevant for everyone on the call, but Star Trek and the holodeck and being able to, kind of throw up an image or three-dimensional image and be able to walk around it. Our tech, I don't think is there yet. If somebody knows of that, please tell me, because I'd love to have that in my home. But it is tough. Did you hear the 3D about printing the Frank Stella in the 3D printer? Did that come across? Am I back?
Grazers? Yeah, no, you're back. You're back.
Sorry, I couldn't hear Elsie at all then.
Oh.
No. Can you hear me now?
Which is distressing because I suspect it was fascinating.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what I'm showing that my audio's live. Harry, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can everyone else hear? Okay. I see. Okay.
We heard the Frank Stella part. Yes. So certain things like we had access to the step file from the Frank Stella. So I did try and print my object in 3D. I have seen it printed in 3D actually at NFT NYC this past November. And they're quite impressive, actually. Mine failed. I have to bring it to a larger or more intricate printer. Ours was not doing a good enough job with it. But I think we're not there yet. But I think we'll get there. There's these works are too impressive, and they deserve to have the right tech. And I really am hoping that the tech will develop in order to show them off as they should be shown.
To that point, Sungrazer, when you were talking about 3D works as well, there are a handful of works that Elsie's collected that are like AR pieces. So not so much like GLB files to be put in the metaverse, but more like that you can project and scale with your mobile device. So I just remembered there's the OG Crystal series, which I will just
I love that. I had so much fun.
These were a treat. So you collect one of these generative sculptures, and the longer you held on to it, the more it would grow and change. But Elsie did a quick tour of presenting it in and around her home. How did that feel, Elsie, by the way, like owning
it was actually so much fun. This is actually
Elsie, sorry. I think we're having some mic issues. This is a bit weird. Do you think we could? Can you see the mic button down below where it?
Am I back?
Yeah. So maybe that did the trick. Can you guys let us know? Oh, cool.
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So sorry. That's so odd. Right. So these OG crystals, I was actually on the island of Nantucket, which is off the coast of Massachusetts. It's a very, very traditional old whaling town, and a lot of it is conservation land. And I was taking my very modern crystals around, and with an app, being able to sort of take pictures of them in unique spots. But yes, I was getting a lot of people staring at me, wondering what the heck I was doing. But it was a blast, and I think they look really cool.
Okay, so yeah, they were quite cool. I just have to add, the beauty of helping this collection, like manage this collection, Sungrazers, is that I used to live in Scotland, so I was able to project it within big spaces in the countryside, and it is fascinating, really, just to see how big and scalable AR works can get.
Yeah, that's sorry. Now I've finally found the deafen button. That's a really interesting thing that we had in Melbourne in the Botanical Gardens, where there was a hidden tour of about 20 sculptures, which you could only see, of course, on your phone, and you could walk around and through them. And again, they were monumental, and just a fascinating way of achieving art, and indeed moving 3D art, that we've never had before. And one of our big subjects is onboarding people from IRL who are, traditional art collectors, who have not previously connected with crypto art at all, or digital art at all, and the way that they are using it in their home is fascinating. I mean, that table that you showed us, good grief, that's amazing. On a simpler level, there's a gallery here in Melbourne who have screens which, at the press of a button, do a 90-degree turn so that it goes from landscape to portrait. And there was an interesting discussion we were lucky enough to go to NFT Sharjah in the UAE, where a point was made that actually video art, if you stick with landscape, it's associated in people's minds with television, whereas if you revolve it to portrait, then it becomes more about art, and it's a constant refrain in our household as to what's the aspect ratio we're going to start with, because of course that dictates everything you do thereafter, and sometimes I chicken out and just go for square.
Mm-hmm. It is a problem, and I totally agree with the landscape. And the newest release of the Samsung frame televisions, I'm sure you've seen them, now has a very matte kind of finish on the front, and you can mount them vertical or horizontal. But they still look like televisions, as flat as they are and as minimal as the frame is. I think you can even get them without a frame at all at this point in time. To me, they still look like giant televisions. I was just at this recent NFT NYC a few weeks back. I saw Infinite Objects, who I mentioned earlier, but these smaller portable frames, they now are making Square, which you also just mentioned, and they're enormous. They're probably, I would say, 3 feet by 3 feet square and about 7 inches deep. I have had not, this is the first time I had seen them. They were amazing. Oh no.
Yeah, I just saw. Yeah.
Let me.
Elsie, can you try? It's just in the bottom left, next to where it says you're using, and there's a headset.
Yes.
On. Just click and unclick. There we go.
We can actually hear you. Excross Lucid, would you mind exiting out of the platform and logging back in? Because it seems that all of us can hear, but so it might be on in your television.
Okay, so it seems to be.
Can you hear me now?
It seems so. Yeah.
Yes.
Super.
Okay. Oh. Okay, now it's fine. Oh, so sorry for the issues. Anyway, I was just speaking about these new Square Infinite Objects that are quite large. Uh-oh.
Oh no, that was me. Don't worry.
Oh, that's you. Okay. But they are beautiful, and the picture was so clear. I couldn't believe it. So I actually want to look into those. I don't know if they've been released to the public or not yet, or they were just sort of in special use for this show. But in my opinion, and I think everyone has a different opinion about what looks good to them in terms of what's going to work inside a home or an office, or even for hospitality. I think things are different. But this to me was the best show of crypto art that I had seen this particular piece of hardware.
So I just want to go on to some more questions. Thank you so much, Sungrazer, for those excellent questions. So Emily asks, despite the challenges you mentioned, do you expect an influx of interest from the traditional art world, like galleries and collectors, etc.? And what might facilitate that?
I do think that it will happen over time, and I think that it is happening. I mean, we have Rafik Anadol at MoMA right now, and other museums are slowly the Pompidou Center just acquired a CryptoPunk. Whether you think that's art or not, I think it's a culturally significant piece in the space. I think it's going to be slow because it is what the crypto art world is doing and where digital art is challenging the establishment. And I think it's like anything in any sphere. It's new, it's different, it's disruptive, and there's sort of fear and uncertainty surrounding it from the traditional art world. But I do think that, like anything, over time, there will be mass adoption. I really do. I think it's when you think back to when photography first was, people were saying this is an art form, and others in the established art world were saying absolutely not. This is an art, and of course it's art. It just was new and different, and it takes time.
Thank you, Elsie. So Cross Lucid asks, how do can't pronounce my words. How would you describe what crypto art means to you? Where do you define its limits? And have you ever thought of any more traditional artists that you would like to see in the space?
I think crypto art to me represents the future. I think that it's something very exciting in terms of how it changes the ecosystem in the art world in terms of the economics and freedom for artists, not necessarily needing galleries to support their work and taking the majority of their profits. The second part of the question was...
I can just get up again. Have you ever thought...
Oh yes, and how do I define its limits? I think it's limitless. I really do. I think that's one of the things that I love about it is how different everyone's work is, and how all artists are using it and approaching it in a different way and coming to different end results with it. I find that fascinating. And have you ever thought of any more traditional artists I would like to see in the space? I actually really enjoy, and this may come as no surprise, looking at artists from how it can affect art, sort of what I would call historical art. Harry, do you remember the project that was done? I can't remember which artist it was now. It was a Renaissance piece, Italian. Oh my goodness.
Was it?
And then also,
was it Van Eyck's Metaverse by any chance? This one?
Yes. Natalie LeRode.
Yes.
Right, I think is her name. She was also a vertical crypto art person. You can tell how much, I'm not joking, I really do love all of the artists who've come through here. But yes, that's a good example of someone who, a reference to an historic artist made into a crypto art piece, and that's that really spoke to me. But another piece, Jake Chapman, for example, who is in the collection, he had done all of these Victorian, I think they're sort of mourning portraits. After someone died in Victorian England, you might have a portrait done of yourself in mourning. I believe that whole series was exhibited at the Tate. They may still be there, actually. I don't know if it's part of their permanent collection. I love when I see historic art sort of rejiggered in a really contemporary way and incorporated into digital art. I also think that may help the space, the people in the traditional art world, to accept this as a new format, because you're taking a piece or something that is familiar, again, sort of what I was trying to do with the format of a .com website, or what I call a dinosaur website, taking pieces that are familiar in sort of their historical value as a painting or whatever kind of art it is, and then changing it in a way that makes it modern and relevant. And that to me, I really enjoy seeing that more than a particular artist that I could name. I think overall, I think that's super interesting.
Yeah, so I was just checking the voice channel just there. With this particular piece, this is part of Chapman's broader body of work. So he takes works for this series, like from car boot sales, and these are people who they can't be identified, but they do have portraits associated to them, and it's all to do with memento mori. And he decorates them in a very morbid way. But this was an interesting experiment, co-delivered by, I think it was Unit London.
Yes, Unit.
Yeah, this was definitely an interesting one. But yeah, so I think Sorry, that I don't know if that's jarring anybody's eyes. It certainly is doing my head in. Okay, yeah. So Amanda, fire away with your question. Can you see this, Elsie?
I can. I do think there's a lot of room to improve, and I'm sure you know, probably 2 months ago now, at least about 2 months ago, Sotheby's in New York was putting together a glitch art auction, and unbeknownst to them, they did not choose one female artist. And I think they did a good job with you know, owning their error, and they sort of brought in some female curators and had a much more balanced selection of works. I think that yes, it is mirroring very much the traditional art world and the world overall, unfortunately. But I keep saying that this space is so brand new, and it is an opportunity for all of us to make sure that women and other races and other genders or sexual orientations, whatever it is, that people of all walks of life are more well represented. I see myself acting as an agent. I am trying very much, putting together the permanent collection. I am really trying to pay attention to having equality, and it is difficult. I think that all of us who have the opportunity to need to make a concerted effort to try and do differently this time. I sort of feel like we've got a bit of a clean slate here. And to me, I do feel a bit of a responsibility in what I'm doing to try and make sure that I'm representing all people. It isn't easy because not all artworks speak to you, and I do try and have my priority be the artwork itself. But I am working at it in a very diligent way, is how I would answer that question.
And then there's just another.
How do I?
So thank you guys for those fantastic questions.
Yes, great questions. They really are. How do I find them? So absolutely through Lal Art, Fanny Lakubai and Harry Jones Martin. I actually was on a panel recently and missaid Harry's name, the wonderful person who I talk to once a week plus for the last 2.5 years. But yes. And then, in addition, social media, Twitter, when I have time going through all the different platforms. And to me, the most fun is finding emerging artists. Feeling like I found something really special that maybe other people haven't caught on to yet. It's sort of, there's a little bit of a thrill there.
Yeah. So, are there any remaining questions for Elsie? I think this has been really great. I'm not sure we've done something like this before. With Elsie present, it's pretty exciting. Maybe just give it a minute. Oh, super. Thank you. So, Elsie, do you think that these types of collections will proliferate? It feels to me like this kind of care is missing from the majority of collectors, as there is so much speculation built into this particular market.
Yes, I think you're right about that. Sadly, there are other collectors who are trying to do similar things. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort. And I think that you have to really care deeply about it in order to donate the amount of time and diligence and to find amazing people like Harry and Fanny to work with. I'm hoping that more people will start to document the work, take time to meet the artists, support the artists, kind of view it as an almost an artist first kind of way that you're developing a collection. But I do think that you're right in saying that a lot of people are doing it, as a lot of people do who collect in the traditional art world. They are collecting to eventually sell and make a profit. I think Edicurial is a little bit unique. There are others out there, but I thank you for noticing that, by the way, because we spent a lot of time and energy, and I'm very proud of what we've done. But I've great people who have been sort of shepherding me through this whole world.
Elsie, I've just realized we haven't actually defined what Edicurial means. Like, we just say it. And
yes. Yes, I know. So it's sort of a co-joining of edit and curate or curatorial. And it's funny, I actually registered this domain back in 2017. I don't know why. It's very strange. I sort of thought I was going to do, the name popped into my head. I thought I was going to do something with art. And it was just sort of sitting there. And then when I started collecting and realized, oh boy, this is actually happening, I'm building something here, I remembered that I had it and kind of we adopted it, and it's worked perfectly.
Yeah, it is. It's a core value. It was interesting exactly, Elsie, just trying to make that the mission statement essentially from the start. It was like you envisaged what was going to happen ahead of time. Maybe.
It's a little odd. I don't mean to sound woo-woo, but it is a little strange that I did register it, because I'm not quite sure I knew at the time what was coming, but something came, obviously, and it worked out really, really well.
So I think we have time for maybe 2 more questions if you have them. Thank you for being such an amazing crowd. It's been really great.
I'll jump in again if I may, Harry. Just going back to that, the 3D and photogrammetry and so on, I'm wondering if Elsie sees a blurring between art and utility, by which I mean, great architecture is a form of art, and now we have this peculiar place, the metaverse, where physics don't apply anymore, and where potentially the building that we do there goes beyond architecture into something else, and I'm not quite sure what that is, but I'm interested in your thoughts on this sort of blurring of lines.
I think absolutely. Architecture in the real world, I absolutely consider art, and a lot of what I do for the Conservancy is protection of old architecture and facades and interiors as well. But within the metaverse, it absolutely is artwork in terms of how new things are developed. We actually had a call a while back. Harry, I'm completely spacing. It was a really talented real world architect who has moved into, I'm sorry?
Untitled XYZ?
Yes, he had moved into the metaverse as a full-time architect, and isn't so talented and has done all kinds of incredible works. But that was one of the conversations that we had, was you don't have to think in terms of gravity and earth and all of the confines that are in the real world, because just as you said, things can be built any which way, upside down, and that was a really interesting conversation. But I do think, and in going into some of the gallery spaces in the metaverse, they're so beautiful. And I do think that the architects who are developing those spaces, it should be considered art, no question.
Thank you so much. And hats off to you, Elsie, for what you're doing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much.
So Elsie, we have 3. I think we might need to mark it underneath Afroscope's question, like those remaining 3.
Yes.
So yeah, the first question is, since the art market is flat and a lot of emerging artists are wondering about what they should do about their art at the moment, if you could shed some light, how do you perceive the project setup, like in terms of editions and pricing, etc.? And does that affect your decision?
Yes. It does and it doesn't. I have several one-of-ones, and I have some that are from large editions. That is a very tough question. I wish that Fanny was on this call because she actually does a lot of work in coaching artists and helping them to make determinations about series and what's going to work in terms of economics. She would be a much better person, I think, to answer that question than I would. But let me just see if there's a second part. How do you perceive? Yes, it really doesn't matter to me if it's a one-of-one or something that has is one of 300 or something like that. It doesn't affect my decision to collect. I would say it's not an important factor. It's the artwork itself that is much more important to me. Do I have a yearly budget? I do not have a yearly budget. I had an initial budget in mind when I started, and we sort of slowed down, I would say, in terms of collecting. The first 2 years, it was kind of like madness and trying to make sure that I had particular artists that I loved within the collection. And the world was just moving so quickly. It was 24/7, and it really was a bit of a rat race now when I'm looking back in retrospect. But I still am continuing to collect, and did I miss the second part of that question as well? Is it fluid on what's happening in the space? Yes, it is. I would say that it is fluid.
So the last question.
Thank you you put Fanny. Yes.
Yeah, I had to do that. So Afroscope, the last question would be, does the blockchain the artwork is minted on matter for the Edicurial?
I don't think that it really does matter to me. I have tried to, I actually was surprised as we were examining a little bit more closely for the permanent collection where all of the pieces came from. The majority are on Ethereum, but I do have several pieces on Tezos. And I that's actually an area of focus. I would like to, in the next year or so, I would like to be more involved with artists who are working on minting on Tezos. And but it doesn't, I would not say that it really truly matters to me in terms of whether or not I'm going to buy a piece or look at a piece.
Okay, so one last quick question. Generative art, yay or nay?
I say yay. That's actually, and someone asked a question earlier about an artist coming into digital art. I really would love to find some or add some examples of more generative art going back to the 60s and 70s, and the actual sort of real computer work OGs. And that's something I also would like to investigate going forward. But yes, I love generative art. I think it's fascinating. And it's in there.
So everyone, I think with that, that concludes the Edicurial, everything you wanted to know. Thank you, Elsie, for being so amazing and being here. I'm sure the vertical crypto art community loves talking with collectors. And thank you for all your excellent questions. It's really good to just have this kind of
great
discussion.
Questions.
Truly.
Yes. Well, I hope that something I said was useful to at least one of you, and I'm so excited for you. I really, as I said, I'm a big fan of vertical crypto art, and I'm very excited to see your work as it progresses. And going forward, I think that we've got a crypto art critique at the end of this month, if I'm not mistaken, Boya.
Yes,
which will be fun.
We actually have 4 of them with Harry, and they are very exciting. They change the opinions of people about what a critique should be, which we are very happy that Harry does for us. Thank you so much to both of you for answering our questions and for lifting the veil from the Edicurial Collection. It's very exciting for us to see what you're going to do next, and thank you again.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Have a
you.
good evening.
Thanks